The best jig that you can possibly make to go along with this thing is one of these. And this is designed to sit and be screwed to the back of the fence here, and the idea being is that this allows you to be able to cut extremely accurate mitres, because you can see where the blade is going to end up. So this like little zero clearance fence is what I would call it. I'm going to make another one today, and the reason I'm going to make one is because I had an accident with the last one. Have a look at this bit of tape. So thankfully I wasn't hurt, and there was enough left of that aluminium strip for me to be able to manually cut it off with a hacksaw and insert it where it belongs, which is underneath the workshop door, stopping dust going into the kitchen. And so let's take a quick look at putting one of these together. There are a few things to consider. This is 18mm thick MDF, because what we're really trying to get is a smooth line where we get a kerf cut. So I've got a couple of pieces of wood here, and this is going to act as the back, and this is going to act as the base. So I've got my back and I've got my base, but these two bits of wood in length are probably, I don't know, about 1/4 of an inch difference. So I can afford to put them both on the chop saw and then cut them so they're identical in length. You can see on the back of this that it's screwed together, and you can also see that it's got these little holes here, and this is really what attaches it to the metal fence that you see on the actual Makita itself. But what we need to do is to make sure that these screws are nowhere near where the blade's going to go. You could see that potentially there would be the possibility that you could get some dust trapped in there. So I think if I put a chamfer on the back of this, even though this is going to be screwed in from the back, let's say there is some debris on here, it just stops the possibility of this being slightly packed out on one side. So we're just going to put a chamfer on that edge. So now I've put a VIX bit on this extension because I need to be able to drill into this hole here in order to put a screw into here. And hope that that went through. And I've just got a tiny little hole there that you can see, just there. And that's good and tight, so now do the other side. Now you could stop at this point, but we're going to take this a stage further. If you think about it, the screws that are securing this to the back, making this nice and secure, are going into MDF, and they're not particularly long or big screws, and the fluting on it isn't particularly wide. So by the time I've screwed this and unscrewed this 3 or 4 times, it's going to be a useless hole and it's going to fail to do its job. So what we're going to do is we're going to unscrew it and we're going to dribble some super glue down the hole, and that's going to really firm it up. And then once that's dried and we screw back into it, it'll actually create like a thread on the inside. On the original one here, what I did is that I drilled a couple of holes and countersinked them so that these screws, the screws that actually go into the back here, have got a little place to live, so that when I'm not using the jig, I've got a place to put these screws so that I don't lose them. And the next job is aesthetic but practical. And you'll notice that when you look at this, there is a contrast between that colour and that colour, and the reason why is because that has been bright waxed with an antique brown, and it helps these lines to show up because there's more of a contrast between the colours. And the other thing is that by waxing it, it makes this a nice smooth surface, and that's what you want. So you can imagine that if we were to just plough through this with a saw, we would cut it in half like we would any other piece of wood. And you can see there that I've got written on there, it says adjust blade depth. So that is easily done on this machine. So by flicking that over, I have now restricted the maximum depth of cut. So that will assure me that I won't cut through my jig. So let's assume that that mark is where we wanted to cut. So if we line that mark up precisely with that edge there, like that, we now know that when we go to cut that piece of wood, it will be exactly in line with that. You know, let's say if we were going to cut the other side and we wanted to change things around, or we wanted to, I don't know, let's say we wanted to put a cut there, knowing that that's what we wanted. So basically that is the material that we want to keep. I would put it on that side there, like that, and I know that I get a perfect cut because I can see where the blade kerf is. So that is the beauty of the zero clearance table insert. You can also see that if you wanted to trim some of that material off, you could move it very slightly forward, and you can so clearly see where the curve cut is. You know exactly where it is. So I mean, at the moment, if I line that up, I know that that is exactly as it's cut at the moment, and I could literally take off a slither of a millimetre in order to get a perfect fit.